It says recording.
Yay. Okay, and we are live. So welcome everyone to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light with myself, Soma ARah, and guests. Please like and share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We have a special guest on tonight, Maria James, and I'm just going to do a quick introduction onto how this interview came about. So I had done I'm a channel for the Pleiadians, and I was woken up one evening, I think it was about a month ago now. No, actually, I think it was the 1st of July. So if anyone would like to watch that video, it's a channeled message from the Pleiadians. They woke me up at 3 AM on the 1st of July. And I channeled a video live while I was still in my pajamas, because I just felt the intensity that I needed to do it there and then. So they were telling me about emergency food shortages in the UK, obviously. I'm not sure where else, but I am in the UK. So I did a video on it, a channeled video, and I had a lady, Maria James, get in touch with me. And that isn't her real name because she wishes to remain anonymous. So I've respected that, and that's what we'll be doing today, is a interview with Maria James, anonymously, and that isn't her real name, because she got in touch with me on Facebook with some information as well, and she's made a list of things for people to prepare. Now, I just want to say again, because it's really important, that the Pleiadians do not, their intention is not to put fear into people. It's simply to inform people so that they can prepare. And that's word for word. Their intention is not to put fear into people, but it's simply to inform them, to inform us, so that we can prepare. So please come like and share this video to everyone, especially if they're in the UK, because they really need to know this information, simply so that they can prepare. And also please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Carol Noonan as well. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Maria James. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Soma. How are you?
Hi, I'm really well, love. Thank you for doing this with me.
No, that's great. I'm really thankful for the opportunity, because the message really needs to get out there.
Yeah, and so many other people are, so many other psychics and mediums and channels and intuitives and empaths are coming up with the same message at the moment.
Absolutely, they definitely are. People have got different viewpoints on it, but the basics are always prepare for the winter, make sure you've got enough food, make sure you've got enough water.
Yeah. Yeah, so where would you like to start? Would you like to do a quick introduction to yourself, or do you just want to go straight into it?
Well, I think in the spirit of remaining anonymous, I think what we'll do is we'll just get into it. So what I'd like to say to people is that, again, this is just to make sure that you're prepared. Obviously, listen to your own guidance, whatever that is. And I've based this presentation and the things within it upon somebody who's living in the UK. And also to give consideration, to get you thinking, because everyone's situation is really unique. Everyone's got different circumstances, whether they're social circumstances or their family circumstances or financial circumstances. So it's really just to get you prepared, to get you thinking, and to help you develop your own strategy. So what I'll do is I'll try and share this screen so that we can see stuff. How's that coming through? Good?
That's perfect, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is basically a guide to preparing your strategy. I'm going to go through some things quickly.
Okay. And I just want to say quickly for our viewers, anyone watching this, I'm going to put this file as a PDF onto my website. And I will put all the links as well into the YouTube description box. So if you're watching now, over the next couple of days, I will upload this video onto YouTube, my YouTube channel, which is Carol Noonan, and I will put links into the description box. But for this file that Maria's going to read out, I'm also going to put it upload it to my website, which is www.thepleiadianchild.com. Pleiadian is P-L-E-I-A-D-I-A-N. That's P-L-E-I-A-D-I-A-N. So don't worry if it's too much information to absorb all now or at the moment while you're reading it, because if you go to the links, you will be able to find it.
Great stuff. Okay, so first of all, I want to go through these guidance notes. So in helping me do my research, I used a website called The Provident Prepper. Now they're Americans, but they do have YouTube tutorials, and they also have action plans and PDFs for different things on their website. They're very easy to understand and follow. So if you don't want to run through this entire presentation and you want to go off and do your own research, or you want to check things, then go to that website. I've already mentioned about everyone's different circumstances. So the biggest outlay that you will have is probably for something to cook on and for fuel for cooking and heating. Another important point is if your electricity goes, you'll need to eat the food out of your fridge and your freezer first. So try not to overstock, because in a power cut, if you've got no other means to keep it cold, then you will waste food. But root vegetables like potatoes and carrots and turnips and sweet potatoes and things like that can last for a few weeks if you store them well. Now, really importantly, if you have babies or toddlers, make sure you've got enough. At the moment, we've just been given announcements over restrictions throughout the UK. People have already started panic buying.
I noticed that the other day, Maria. Yeah, I noticed it in my local Asda. So yeah, people have already started. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just going to.
No, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Interject wherever. So yeah, people have already started panic buying. What I'll say about that is, I don't really think you need to panic buy, but you definitely need to stock up. And I'd say that you've got about 4 to 5 weeks to do that. Make sure that you're sorted by the 31st of October is what I'm working to, and a lot of other people that I know are fairly similar. So with babies and toddlers, they can grow really quickly. So make sure you've got enough clothes in 2 sizes and plenty of nappies and formula and medicine, particularly over winter. Over-the-counter medicines and stuff like that are going to be really crucial to have. So I'm suggesting that people have a minimum of 1 month food and water supply on hand. Now, the government guidance at the start of lockdown in March was that people should have 2 weeks worth of food. So I would say start with a 2-week supply. So aim to have a 2-week supply immediately as your immediate goal, and then start buying extra bits and pieces to put away to have as much as you can on hand, but try for a month. Yeah. But it's pretty affordable, you know, like if you can eat anything, obviously people on special diets are going to have to look at this a little bit more and see what they can afford and prioritize stuff. But for example, I've got some prices here for basics that you can see to get you through. So you can get a tin of tuna for up to 59p, baked beans at 23p, a kilo of oats 75p, and a kilo of white rice for 45p, pasta from 20 to 29p, tin tomatoes, chickpeas, they're all quite affordable. Water, 17p for a 2-litre bottle, and that's in most supermarkets. I'll get onto that later in the water section, but there's a lot of things here. Tesco do an Aldi price match on a range of items. So if you're going to go and shop in store and you don't have an Aldi close by or a little close by, check the prices of the things that you want so that you know which brands and which things to get. But most of all, what you need to remember is when you're stocking up for food in a survival emergency situation, it doesn't necessarily have to be tasting fantastic. I'll get onto that later, because the aim of survival food is that it's cheap, filling, quick, and it's nutritious. Yeah.
It's just basic survival. So we're not talking about Waitrose or Marks and Spencer's food.
Well, if you can afford it, go for it. But if you can't afford it, there are options there for you that everybody can.
Yeah. Which I think, Maria, is really important, because I know that someone commented on my last on the first video I did about the emergency food shortages. They were quite negative in their response, and they just said, well, I can't afford to do that. So yeah, so that's a good point. You know, this is anyway, over to you, Maria.
No, that's fine. So, you know, like when it comes down to it, all the things that I'm going to go through here in this presentation, the separate areas and stuff that you need to be looking at and deciding whether you need to take action on or not, you're going to need to be creative and resourceful. So if you need equipment and things like that, look at FreeCycle. FreeCycle's free online. You just got to be able to go and pick it up. Same with Gumtree freebies, charity shops. You know, asking friends and family, neighbours for equipment. It might be just blankets that you're repurposing for other things, or buckets, containers, empty water bottles even. You know, using tinned, jarred and dried foods to make nutritious meals, being a little bit creative with that type of stuff, and recycling water. So, you know, like you've got an opportunity to check some skills out and Google some ideas. You've got plenty of time. You've got like 4 or 5 weeks in my estimation. But yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's great information. And thank you so much for taking the time to do the presentation. One thing I noticed today is that I can also stock up on tap water using milk bottles as well.
Milk bottles aren't ideal.
Okay.
They're not ideal, but if you're pushed for short-term storage, they're okay as long as they don't split.
Okay.
But we'll get onto that in the water section.
Okay.
So just to give everybody an idea of what we're going to be talking through. So the things you need to consider, the main points are heat for cooking food and staying warm, light, so torches, candles, natural light, mirrors and tin foil, believe it or not, water, making sure you've got enough, how to recycle it, and easy to use bottles. Foods that are shelf stable, so long life foods. A bit on nutrition, a bit on meal planning and prep. Health, whether you should get a first aid kit. OTC stands for over the counter medicines. So things like paracetamol, ibuprofen, Rennie's tablets, that sort of stuff. And prescription medicines, I'll talk about prescription medicines and supplements. Hygiene, which is about cleaning, bathing, laundry and dishes. Your local area knowledge and emergency equipment that you really should have. And the government has recently talked about, or some parts in England have talked about go bags. So we'll talk about that in that section. A bit on supporting vulnerable people, because there's lots of different types of vulnerable households and people. And then at the end is the resources, which you guys can look at the PDF on Soma's website. So heat, you need that for warmth and for cooking. And we'll talk about the fuel types and conservation. So one of the best things to be able to keep warm is to check your living space for insulation and check your windows, line your curtains. You can make your own, or you can buy ready-made curtain linings. You can also use blankets and, believe it or not, shower curtains if you're stuck. Bubble wrap on the windows is also a good trick, but it's the large bubble wrap. Bivy bags and mylar blankets. So they're the foil blankets and foil type sleeping bags that are emergency kit, and they're actually quite cheap. So even if you put them in the car, I think you can get like a packet of 10 for like £10 or something. Making draft stoppers, keeping warm, wearing a hat, blankets, hot water bottles, stick on heat pads, the 24-hour ones or even the 8-hour ones, hand warmers. One of the things the Provident Preppers said was to live in one room. You're going to want to live in one room if it's really cold. And you can create a microclimate using a tent or making a blanket fort. So they actually put their kids into a tent to play in, and they found that it was a lot warmer than just out in the main room. Part of that was the body heat, and part of it was just because they were contained in that area. So in terms of heating, gas panel heaters, so the big heaters that take large gas bottles, you can get them on eBay for local collection for £35. If you want to buy a new one, it's about 70. Camping stoves are great. They're designed for outdoor use. So like a barbecue, they need to have a lot of ventilation. You can use your barbecue outdoors or in the garage with ventilation. You'll need gas bottles and canisters if you're going to use a camping stove or gas panel heater, or even possibly a barbecue. If you've got a fireplace, then you've got fire to keep yourself warm, and you've also got fire that you can cook on. So wood or a coal fireplace or wood stoves, potbelly stoves, that type of thing, you'll be able to cook on those if you need to, as well as keeping yourself warm. So that's actually a really great thing to have in your home if you have one. The other thing that I discovered, and I've actually bought these, are chafing fuel gel tins. So you know how you go to a buffet and you'll see the big silver dishes and stuff. Maybe you're at a Chinese restaurant, you see the buffet. They'll have the chafing fuel gel tins underneath it, lit, to keep the food hot. Now, it's designed to be just for heating food, but you can actually, in an emergency, cook with those things, and they will hit 200 degrees Celsius. So you can boil water, you can cook food on them. They're quite safe. They don't give off any vapors indoors at all, so they're safe to use indoors. You can get them in different burn times. I bought 6-hour burn time ones, and they can be used to cook with. They can also be used like candles to make a flower pot heater. So you can do that with 2 clay flower pots.
Well, what is a flower pot
It's
heater?
probably easier if you Google that, but pretty much what it is you can use tea lights, you can use candles, you could use chafing fuel, gelatin, or an alcohol burning fuel, which is a little bit more, obviously it's a flame, it's an open flame. But what you need to do is you need to balance 2 pots on top of each other, kind of thing, one inside the other on a rack. So some people have the fire source in the middle, a couple of bricks, a rack on top, like a cake rack. You can take a cake cooling rack and then put your pots on top of that. And what it does is it transfers heat. So it radiates a bit of heat, but not a lot. It won't heat an entire room, but it will heat a small area. So that's something that people have been coming up with for a little while. It's not exactly efficient, but if it's an emergency and you need to be able to be warm, it's better than nothing. Just like you can actually cook with candles as well, but like I say, it's not ideal and it's better than nothing. So the other trick when it comes to conserving your heat is that if you're going to use emergency gas stove or whatever, you're probably going to have to make sure you don't use too much and you ration it, depending on how much you've got. So it takes about the same amount of time to boil a small amount of water as it does a slightly larger amount. Boil some extra water and put it into a thermos flask. If you put it into a thermos flask, then you can go back and make a hot drink or a cup of soup or whatever later. But it saves you using up that fuel. Alternatively, it will keep it warm enough so that if you need to use it for something else and make it hotter, it won't take so long. Okay, lighting. All I'm going to say about lighting is that, you know, like try and figure out what you're going to need light for. If you're going to be working, if you're going to be staying at home, what times of the day you're going to need it. Opening up your curtains will help you heat room with natural light. Mirrors and tinfoil reflect light. So if you've got a mirror behind a candle, it'll reflect more light than if you don't have a mirror there. Alternatively, you can make your own kind of reflector using cardboard and tinfoil. Use the shiny side of the tinfoil out. And it's like they use them in photography to reflect the light for photos. But you can also use a car sunshade. You know how you get the shades that have got that foily bit on the side? That will also help, yeah. I've actually seen videos where people make outdoor ovens using a car sunshade with the foil. So yeah, it's quite inventive. Torches. Know how long your battery is going to last for and make sure you've got a good supply. Mini torches are really cheap. You can get them, I saw them in Asda the other weekend, they're £2 for a tiny torch. But you can get little lanterns, which are also £3, and they have, you're able to pull the top portion up and they have a little hook. So you can actually hook them onto things, which is quite handy if you have to be hands-free with your torch kind of thing. You can hang them up beside, if you've got a hook, you can hang it up beside the bedside, for instance, and take it with you. So, and there's also candles. Candles, make sure you know how long they're going to burn for. The other thing about candles is that I recently found out if you chill them or freeze them, you'll get 20 to 50% extra burn time out of them.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's handy to know. Okay, water. Water's really important. So sorry if I'm battering through this, but
Oh, that's okay.
yeah.
You can take your time, Maria. It's okay, love.
No, I'd rather sort of like get to the point of things, because, yeah. So 4 litres a day and a 2-week supply is what's recommended. So that's 56 litres per person. So 2 litres a day for doing, you know, food, drinking, hydration kind of thing. So that includes things like tea, soup, fruit juices, fruits and vegetables. So it's not just from like a bottle of water. You can get it from food sources and other drinks as well. And you're going to need it for laundry, washing yourself, dishes, and also for cooking. Now, I'll talk about storage first. So
say that again, Maria. Your sound dipped out a little bit then.
Oh, sorry. So I'll talk about water storage first. Okay. And what you can do. Yeah. So yeah, Soma, you're absolutely right. You can store tap water. If you want to filter your tap water, if you've got another means to filter it, you can buy jugs, or you can buy water filters for your tap for under £10.
Wow, that's very good.
Yeah.
And where can you get those?
You can get them on eBay. You can get them mostly on eBay. You can actually get some on Amazon as well. It depends what kind of quality you're looking for, but you know, like, you don't need to spend a lot of money for some things. You can just get the job done. Alternatively, what you could do is you could buy 2-litre bottles of water. Now, it's 17p for a 2-litre bottle of water in most supermarkets. And the thing that you want to watch is the pH level of the water. So it must be 7.0 or more. And most budget supermarket bottles of water are around about 7.6 or 7.8 pH. So they're actually absolutely fine. They're in the good levels. Check the back of the bottle. So if you wanted to make yourself a 56-litre stock of water and just buy it from the supermarket, you'd need to buy 28 2-litre bottles, and that would cost you £4.76.
That's very good. I mean, people say, well, I can't afford it, but actually you can.
You can afford it. And the thing is, if it came down to it, you could possibly manage to get by on 2 litres of water a day, depending on what you're eating, what foods you're eating, how often you're washing, and provided that you're not having to do laundry for large items. And we'll talk about that as well. So it's completely affordable, but like, you can store tap water in a cool, dry place for up to 6 months.
Okay.
And if it's an emergency, like, use recycled water bottles, soft drink bottles, like large 2-litre Coke bottles or whatever. Just make sure it's food that's been in it and wash it out properly. With milk bottles, you can use milk bottles, but they are very thin, so they do have a tendency to split. Also, some people don't like using plastic. Some people prefer to have glass. If you can do that, great. But the thing with water is that I really want to impress upon people is that you can only go 3 days without water.
Yeah.
You can go, a normal, average, healthy person can actually last 40 days without food, provided they drink enough water. So if it comes down to it, it's the water over the food, pretty much. As long as you've got clean drinking water, you will survive. Not that I ever think that it's actually going to be that bad for anybody in the UK at all. But the other thing about 2-litre bottles, or actually bottles of water, is that, like, you can get folding pouches. They're not great, so I wouldn't recommend those. You can get like the water cooler bottles off Amazon, the 15-litre bottles, and you can buy a pump, either a rechargeable or battery operated pump, so that you can actually fix it to the bottle and you just have to press a button on the top and the water comes out, which is really good for people that don't have the strength or the mobility to be able to lift or manage a bottle. The other thing with that is, if it's in smaller bottles, it might be easier for somebody to open and use, but also it helps you to understand how much you've got as rations and to be able to count it. So if you've got 2-litre bottles of water, you can say, right, okay, I've got 1 2-litre bottle of water, that's for washing, or that's for drinking, and I've got 1 2-litre bottle of water, and that's for washing my dishes, cooking food, and that type of thing. So you can it makes it easier to balance it out and ration it if you have to. That's my thinking, but others might feel differently, and that's absolutely fine. Now, another interesting thing that I learned while I was checking out prepping was reusing and recycling water. And one of the most interesting things is if your water goes, if the electricity goes, you won't have any heating, you won't have any gas, and you might only have water for a few days before it goes off completely. So if you're wanting to flush your toilet, put the water that you're going to use into the cistern and use the flush mechanism like normal. Don't do a bucket flush because it takes more water.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a really good thing to know. The other thing too is that, like, if you're eating rice, you need to rinse rice before you have to cook it. So it takes more water than cooking pasta. But what you can do is, like, you can save the water that you rinse your rice in, and you can save the water that you cook your rice and your pasta in, and you can reuse that for actually doing dishes, because the starch in the water is actually quite good with a bit of detergent for cleaning dishes. The rice rinsing water, there's a fad whether you can rinse your hair with rice water, and it's supposed to make it fantastic. So you can do that, you can do your dishes, you can rinse your hair with rice water, and then once you finish with that, you can flush it down the loo. So you're actually getting sort of like 3 uses out of it, that one bit of water. And dishes can be washed in cold water, so you don't necessarily have to have hot water for that.
So you've got some really good information there, Maria.
Thanks. I had the time to figure it out with, you know, lockdown and stuff like that. But the other good thing to know is that baby wipes are really good for lessening your need for water. So it might seem a bit yucky, but I mean, if you're really hard up for water, using baby wipes instead of actually using water to wash with is going to be a lot better for you. Maybe not great for the environment, but definitely better for your water needs. Have you got anything that you wanted to say, Soma?
Yeah, there's a whole list of things I wanted to add, but one of the things is about growing our own food, because I've been told that that's the direction we need to go anyway, is growing our own food and coming back to smaller communities. So if anyone can grow your own food, do, you know, start now. So that's another tip as well. And also diabetes, because I do have diabetes. I was diagnosed I think it was October. So I can't eat white rice. I can't eat white pasta. I can't eat white bread. There's a lot of stuff I can't eat. I can't eat beans or basically any processed food. So what I've stocked up on, anyone listening who has diabetes, I've stocked up with some things I shouldn't eat, like tin soups and things, because basically I shouldn't eat anything processed. And they also say I shouldn't eat potatoes, but I actually have started eating potatoes and I'm fine on them. So the medical profession aren't always accurate, as we well know, especially Big Pharma. So what I've stocked up on, and I'm diabetic, I've stocked up on pulses, on lentils, on brown rice, on gluten-free pasta, quinoa. I can't eat couscous, so I haven't got that. I've stocked up on noodles, which I shouldn't really have, but I've got the egg noodles. I've got those. And so I've got beans, pulses, rice. I've got a ton of stock cubes to make soups. And so beans, pulses, rice, lentils, and anything that's dried and things like that. Okay,
so can you not eat like canned kidney beans, for instance?
Yeah, I can eat those. I quite like kidney beans. So there is tin stuff I can eat, like certain beans, not baked beans, but other beans I can eat, and fish. I eat quite a lot of fish. like tin fish. I don't normally eat tin fish, but I do eat tin mackerel, and they sell them in Lidl for about 70p, I think, or something.
Yeah, they're actually quite economical, and also mackerel is a nice oily fish, so it's actually really quite good for you as well. Can you eat oats?
No, I'm not. No, no, I can't. No, no.
That's a shame. They normally recommend that you eat oats to help keep your blood sugar under control, but if that doesn't work for you, then that doesn't work for you.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me. Mind you, I've never been able to eat oats.
Okay.
I always get really tired after them. I always have got tired after oats and other certain foods, but so I've never really been. I mean, I like oats, I like porridge, but I've never. Just can't eat them.
Doesn't agree with you.
Yeah, it just sends me to sleep.
Oh dear, that's not good. Okay, what are we on next? Food. Oh, look at that. We're on food next. How the hell did that happen? Right, so at the very top, I've written that the intake for calories is 2,000 a day per adult, and for children, it's between 1,000 to 3,200. So obviously, your hungry, hulking, hormonal teenager is going to go through a lot more calories than your 3-year-old, for instance. So this advice in terms of food is based on the fact that if you're surviving, you want to have as much calorie dense food as you possibly can. And I'll talk about tins and things like that. So I've put in here all sorts of things about fruit, vegetables, fish, meat, soup, ready meals in a tin. Okay. So my take on that is you can pick up a lot of things at a reasonable cost. It's about how you use them and how you combine them. So for instance, like you could take a tin of mince and onions from Tesco or Sainsbury or wherever and add some tomatoes and make it into a bolognese. Mm-hmm. Or add some tomatoes, add some beans and make it into a chili con carne. Mm-hmm. Like you can do a lot with some pasta, peas, corn, and tuna. You're just going to have to be inventive. Things like ratatouille, you can get. I bought some really nice jars of ratatouille from Lidl, but you can actually get tinned ratatouille for about 70p a can. So it's got courgette and aubergines in there, as well as onions and tomatoes and a few other things. To me, if I was stuck, I would add some extra carrots and potatoes and maybe some extra water and turn it into a soup. Mm. So you could take one can like that and take your water, make it into a soup to feed more people. You could add some rice or some lentils to bulk it out and give you that extra, and you'd be good as gold. Mm. So things like that. And yes, lentils and rice will bulk out a meal or a soup. Flour will as well, but obviously you don't want to use a lot of flour. Breadcrumbs, polenta, which is cornmeal, corn flour, and instant mash. You can use that to thicken stews and soups as well. So instant mash is actually quite an interesting one because you can actually do a lot with it. So if you wanted to, you could take a packet of instant mash and make potato scones or potato bread. If you didn't have an oven, you could make, potato scones like in the pan kind of thing. You can make gnocchi out of it as well. So that's the Italian little potato dumplings instead of pasta. So maybe for people who are diabetic and can actually eat dried potatoes reconstituted, maybe it's a consideration, I'm not sure. Pasta. Now pasta's great because it actually doesn't take up as much water as rice. But you can actually cook it in the sauce with a bit of extra water. So you can do like one pot cooking and reduce the amount of water that you've got. Dried and instant soups, You can make them into a flavoring or a sauce. So for instance, if you had some evaporated milk on hand, or some kind of like, or even soy milk or another milk substitute, you could take a dried mushroom soup and make a sauce for pasta or something with it. The thing with food when it's an emergency, you really need to have spices, herbs, flavorings, things that are going to make it more palatable and exciting to eat. But with tinned food, for instance, if you're really stuck and you don't have anything to cook on, you don't have anything to heat it up, you can eat those foods straight out of the can. Might not sound appealing, but if that's the only thing that you've got, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Milks and juices. So yeah, you can get evaporated milk, you can get milk powder. Milk powder lasts forever. UHT milks. So that's also things like soy milk, oat milk. You can get long life milks. It doesn't all have to be cow's milk. And juices. So juices will have a water content in there as well, so that you're not just drinking water. And you can, if you can actually eat oats, you can do overnight oats using fruit juice. If you've got tins of fruit that are actually packed in fruit juice, you can use the juice off that. And I'd also recommend that if you've got vegetables in water and you're short of water, then I'd just throw the can in, like, don't drain the water off, just throw it in, add a little bit of extra water to cook it. The other thing you can do with pasta is if you're making a pasta dish or a rice dish, towards the end of the cooking, you can actually put in the vegetables, if you're using vegetables, and cook them off at the same time. So you're only using one pot, you're not using as much water, and everything's ready at the same time. So yeah, we've talked about instant mash, but not in this sense. So instant mash, couscous, and the Chinese rice vermicelli noodles, you only need to soak them in a fixed amount of water. So like instant mash, I think, is maybe about 200 or 500 mils of water to serve two. Couscous is about the same. You just leave it to do its thing and soak for like 5 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. It means that you're not having to use your stove top. If you've only got one burner, then it takes the pressure off having to try and coordinate that. And you know, like, you can get instant couscous in lots of different flavors, and having that as a base for some other meals. I mean, if you had instant couscous, if you could really only kind of like have a small amount of water for cooking, instant couscous would actually be quite handy. And you could put something like a tin of tuna and maybe some olives or some fruit chopped up in there as well, without them having to be heated, and you can eat.
So with the instant couscous, do you mean the packets?
You can get a packet for like 50p, I think it is.
Okay. And you don't need to cook those, do you?
Sorry?
You don't need to cook those, do you?
No, you pour the water in, you let it soak, and then you fluff it up after 5 minutes, and it's done. It's ready to go. But like instant mash. And the rice vermicelli noodles are exactly the same. So you just need to soak them, and then you would take them out of that water and finish them off in the pan.
And that's in hot water, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just in like hot water. That's fine. What's going on here? Okay, so I've talked about sugars and sauces and herbs and spices and stuff for flavor. And now I'm going to talk about a couple of other ingredients. So vinegar, lemon juice, and baking soda, they're really kind of like household essentials that you should always have, because there's so many things that you can do with them in combination or separately. So things like baking soda you can use for making soda bread, so you don't need yeast. Things like vinegar and baking soda together you can use as an egg replacement, depending on what you need an egg to do in baking. but also you can use it to unblock your drains. Vinegar is actually really good for getting rid of odors, as is baking soda. And before there was ever dry shampoo, people would use baking soda, corn flour, as a substitute. They didn't have it in those days, so that's what they used. You can also make your own deodorant using baking soda. Peanut butter. Now, peanut butter is really good for protein, so it's a really good emergency food to have if you can eat it. If you can't eat it, I'm really sorry, I'm not sure. Maybe another nut butter. Check.
Because I don't think I can eat peanut butter. I love peanut butter and I just can't eat it.
Yeah, well, peanut butter, obviously you get the cheap, the good, and the organic. But the same goes for all the other nut butters. So was it almond butter is probably the most prevalent, the easiest to find. I think you can even buy almond butter in Lidl, probably.
Yeah, I think I've seen it in there.
Yeah. So if it's in Lidl, chances are it's also in Aldi. And if it's in those two places, you'll find it everywhere else, but it's probably going to be cheaper there. Marmite. Now, Marmite is great for B vitamins, and you can use it as stock as well. Chocolate you really need for energy. And, you know, like, you don't have to buy the most expensive chocolate when you're talking about an emergency situation. If you're having to put together packs for a go bag and stuff, if you have to evacuate, putting in a block of chocolate is something that you should definitely consider. 30p for 100 grams of chocolate. That's the cheapest that I've seen. And I've been trying out the cheaper chocolates to see whether they're any good or not. And it's perfectly acceptable. And if you wanted to melt it to make a cake or anything like that, it's fine. To put it in some dessert and stuff, but just to eat it, it's absolutely fine. Obviously, darker chocolate is healthier for you. What I would say to people is learn to make bread. Stock up on flour, learn to make bread. There's a lot of really easy, simple recipes out there where you don't have to be a genius with yeast, because I think people get really put off by the fact that, you know, are they going to kill the yeast? Is it, you know, like, is it going to turn out if I just made a complete disaster kind of thing? Because they're really not very confident working with yeast, or not sure about working with yeast. Overnight proofing recipes use less yeast.
Can I just add something, Maria? My mum was Irish, and she used to make soda bread, and she used to use flour, water, and not water, sorry. She used to use sour milk.
Yeah, buttermilk, yeah.
Yeah. So just if she had some sour milk in the fridge, which she often did, she would use she would use the sour milk and put that into the soda bread. And she was Irish, so she made really good soda bread.
Yeah, well, soda bread is a really good quick bread recipe. You don't have to wait for it to rise. You basically just mix it, put it in the oven from start to finish. It's ready in 40 minutes.
Can I just add also that to the soda bread, you could make a sweet soda bread. You can add currants to it.
Oh yeah, you can add whatever you want into bread. It doesn't matter which recipe it is. If you want to flavor it with something, if you know, like, you've got sesame seeds, or you've got sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds that you want to throw on top, or you've got fruit that you want to stick in the middle of it, then go ahead, by all means. Soda bread, if you don't have sour milk, and you don't have buttermilk, because a lot of recipes will tell you to use buttermilk, you can actually just use normal cow's milk and put some lemon juice in and leave it for like 5 minutes till it starts to actually not curdle, but you can see little bits on the back of the spoon. So if you've got lemon juice, you can make buttermilk to make soda bread. It's not hard. Overnight proofing recipes, you leave them for 24 hours or 18 hours, and then you basically don't need it. You just shape it up a little bit, put it on a tray, stick it in the oven. It's done. It's basically just, you just need to mix it and leave it, pretty much. And it uses a lot less yeast as well. So anything that's a quicker rise, it's like 2, 3, 4 hours or something, it's usually using a lot more yeast. Overnight proofing recipes, I think the one that I use, it's like 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, which is like 1/4 packet, a sachet of yeast. Talking about bread, it's always handy to have some long life bread on hand. So you can get tortillas. I bought tortillas in Asda the other weekend that have got 3 months on them, just to put away for an emergency in case I can't bake bread, I've got nothing kind of stuff. I can just grab that, and that's something to eat that I can put bits and bobs with. Crackers and crisp breads and rice cakes are also handy. Rice cakes particularly, or wheat-free stuff if you can't tolerate normal kind of like bread, wheat flour. And don't forget your biscuits and your comfort food snacks like jams and honey and rice pudding, custard, nuts and dried fruit. Nuts are really good because they're full of fats, oils and proteins. So they're actually great for putting in with, say, some sultanas or raisins and some other chopped up dried fruits and coconut, like a trail mix. But that will help keep you going if you get really stuck for snacks and for food. And it's not expensive either. It can be as expensive or as cheap as you want. The other thing that I was going to explain to people is that you can use oil as a butter substitute for some things. And what I recently discovered and bought is that ghee, so that's clarified butter, ghee lasts for 3 months open.
Wow.
Counter. If you stick it in the cupboard, it lasts for 6 months. So if you need to have butter for something, I would recommend that you buy some ghee. It will last for a long time and it doesn't need to be refrigerated. You can use oil, mayo, baking soda and vinegar as egg replacements depending on what you're doing. And I've already talked about boiling vegetables in with pasta and rice to save on water and cooking fuel. And yeah, so, you know, like, it's open to a lot of creativity. It's around what you're going to be able to eat, but, you know, please stay within your budget. It's achievable, definitely. You don't have to go out and buy lots of fancy stuff, but if you can combine it creatively, you can have really great meals, even though it's emergency food. I'll quickly talk about this. We talked about getting your over-the-counter medicines and stuff like that, especially for winter. You're probably going to need some heat rub, some Vicks, pain relief gel, that kind of stuff. Just stock up on the things that you would normally use. Now, prescription medicines, this is the big one as far as I'm concerned. So the advice on the NHS UK website is that a pharmacist can give you up to a 30-day supply for an urgent prescription, but you have to see the pharmacist face to face, and you have to give evidence that you've been prescribed the medication before. So I would recommend that if you need to do that, keep an empty box or an empty bottle on hand. If for some reason you can't get to the doctor, you can go into any pharmacist and ask for that, but you must have evidence that you have had that before. I think everybody who's probably watching this channel knows a bit about supplements and knows that you need to have your vitamin B, C, D, zinc, iron, magnesium, all that sort of stuff. Spirulina is a complete protein, so you can use that powder by itself, or you can add it to things. If you're worried that you might not be having enough greens in your diet, especially for an emergency diet. And there's all sorts of things like garlic and ginger and honey. Manuka honey is a big one that people like to take as an immune booster and a healer. Now, about Manuka honey, there was a study done a few years back now, and really Marks and Spencer's own brand Manuka honey, 10 plus, and Tiptree Manuka honey 10 plus. Chit-tree honey you can get in various supermarkets. They were the most effective Manuka honeys that they found in this study done in the UK about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. You don't need to have really expensive Manuka honey. You can get by on some Marks and Spencer's honey, which is, I think it's now about £17, 16 or £17 for a jar. But the other thing that you can do is use raw, and it must be raw, so that's not processed, heat treated processed heather honey. So you can get heather honey that comes from Scotland, you can get heather honey that comes from England, and you might want to check out some of maybe your local beehives. I know that there's one, recently referred a friend to a local apiary in somewhere near Bournemouth. Anyway, so yeah, so I actually bought some raw heather honey in Asda. It was like £6.50. There's a big difference between £6.50 and £16.
Yeah.
Things that you need for your skin, wound healing, salt is great for cleansing wounds and gargling. That's all pretty much stuff that I think most people are aware of. If they're not, then they can check that out here. Just want to get on to, so hygiene. Again, it's all about making sure that you've got enough stuff to keep the place clean. If you're not, if you've got no water and you've got no fuel, then, you know, like, things are going to get dirty very quickly. Sponge bathing, baby wipes, using natural ingredients, or making sure you've got enough for doing cleaning around the house, stocking up on enough toiletries for babies, for yourself, and also making sure you've got enough clothes on hand. So like, particularly if you've got kids get dirty really, really quickly. They go through clothes like there's no tomorrow, particularly younger children. So, you know, like, you want to make sure that you've got enough underwear and clothing, bedding and towels and stuff, so that if you have to go for 2 weeks without being able to do laundry, particularly for big stuff without a machine, that you're going to be okay with that. You know, like, if you've got children, you might need to do some hand washing. So you might have to think about either having extra clothes and extra water on standby for that. The only other thing I'd say about cleaning is that you won't be able to use a vacuum cleaner or a dust buster. So old school way of cleaning your carpet is to use a broom. You've got to have a stiff enough broom, but that's how you do it. Beating rugs. The other thing that you can do is you can invest in a carpet sweeper, which will cost you £15 on Amazon. Also try and figure out if it comes down to not having any water, or at the time, you know, like, can you actually go to another area, to a friend's place, to a relative, to a gym or a sports club, to have a shower or to do washing or something? You know, check out what's local to your area and what's available to you, and have a backup plan, particularly if you're in a place where, you know, you're prone to flooding and you may have to evacuate. Which brings me on to knowing your local area. So you need to know where you live, you need to know your local area, and particularly if you're living somewhere where it's prone to flooding or storms, have a go bag just in case. Now, I know people in some parts of England are getting really upset about being told that they should have a go bag. Yeah, there's things on, I usually watch UK Column, which is a great independent journalist presentation of news of current events, what's happening in the UK, what's happening in the world as well, but primarily with a UK focus. And they were talking about it because several councils around London and NHS boards towards Cornwall were saying that you should have a go bag. And that September was preparedness month, and they were all with the hashtag 30 ways, 30 days, or 30 days, 30 ways, or something like that. And people are sort of wondering, panicking and wondering, oh, what are they going to do? Why are they going to evacuate us? Why do we need to be prepared for this?
Mm.
I've, no, go
I,
ahead.
sorry, Maria, go on.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, because the cabal, the negative energies, the black cats, the powers that are governing us, that I've heard that they do, the universal law is that they do need to let us know what they're doing.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I have heard that as well. I've also heard that a lot of the fires in the States are not actually natural disasters, and that they're actually done by a thing called direct energy weapons.
Yeah. Maria, because my sugar level is dipping, but would you be able to read out everything, and then we can go into things at the end, if that's okay, and we can always do a follow-up if you're open to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've really only got like this and another one left to do.
Okay.
So what I would say is, like, make sure have a go bag. If you're in that place where, like, you may have to evacuate. Now, don't be alarmed. It's just about being prepared. Make sure you've got food and clothing. Make sure you've got some kind of a heat source. And also, very importantly, whether you need to have a go bag or not, have a battery operated or a wind up radio. Because if the electricity goes, there's no internet, there's no television, any kind of emergency broadcast will be on radio. So it needs to be an AM frequency. So it's got to have AM frequency. You can't just have FM. That's too short. AM frequency is a longer wave. So all the broadcasts will be done on AM frequency. You can buy a cheap radio for, like, battery operated radio for about £6 or something. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be able to do the job. Also, things like making sure you get into the habit of recharging your electricals. So things like your toothbrush, your power bank, even your wind-up radio or whatever that's got, anything that's rechargeable that you're going to need. If you get into the habit of doing it every week, then you're only going to lose like about a week's lifespan out of it. And know how long your charges will last for. Use a battery-operated clock or a watch. I got a travel alarm clock for £2 in Asda, takes 1 AA battery. Make sure that your equipment works, check it, know how to operate it, know how to store it safely, and that's particularly important with fuel. If you're living in a flood area, a flood-prone area, then please don't leave all of your supplies, particularly food, at low levels. Put it up higher. So your go bag and everything would go up high somewhere. And write down your names and addresses, phone numbers and stuff, because if the internet's not working and your phone's not working, everybody lives with their phone. Yeah. Everything's in their phone, right? So if you need to know, the telephone number for your doctor's name, your prescribed medicines and your dosage, things like your NHS number, which is also known as a CHI number, CHI number, that will be on any references that you get from the NHS. That's your unique number. National insurance and passport numbers and expiry dates, things like that. That is just a quick and easy reference for you to have. Just keep it on hand. Scan your essential documents, so you can get an app on your phone that will save to the cloud. Like you can scan your passport, you can scan your insurance documents, and that sort of stuff, so that you've got the hard copies put away safely somewhere. But if for some reason you can't get to them, you've got them downloaded, you've got them where they're able to be accessed, but you've maybe also got some of the details on hand as well. If you need to make up backup copies of your documents, like for your go bag, if you have to run off in an evacuation, then make some copies and stick them in one of the bags, or stick a couple of copies in 2 bags or something. The other thing about not having any sort of like internet or heating and stuff like that, no electricity, is that you can't watch TV. So make sure you've got some books and some crafts and some games and some puzzles and some toys that can keep you entertained. You need some entertainment, musical instruments and that sort of thing.
And also, I just want to say there again that this is not about putting fear into people. This is simply about informing people so that they can prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, if you check the government websites, it will tell you to make sure that you're prepared and what to prepare for, and what things that you should have in a go bag, what things that you should stock up on, how many liters of water and things like that, food, how many weeks, that type of stuff. It's actually on all the government websites.
And do they normally do that, Maria? Or is this something that's recent?
No. They've always done it. It's just that people aren't aware that they've always done it. And I think that's where the panic's coming from, with people being told to have a go bag.
Okay.
Because, like if you live in a bushfire, earthquake prone, tsunami prone area of the world, you go through drills for this sort of stuff regularly. When you grow up with it, you go through drills for it. You know what to do, you know what to look for, you know what to pack, you know where you should be going in those sorts of instances. But nothing like that actually ever happens in the UK. There's no real natural disasters on a regular basis. You don't have the threat of a volcano actually going off in the middle of the country. There's no bushfires. There's no earthquakes really, although there have been a couple of earthquakes lately. But
supposedly earthquakes.
Allegedly earthquakes,
yeah.
Yes. No, definitely not earthquakes in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Mine too. Yeah. I think an earthquake in London, I mean, that's, that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it's almost like somebody drove a train the wrong way, isn't it?
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I'm going to touch on vulnerable people, because it's really important to take care of others, and people have different situations. Some people will be supporting elderly people, parents, relatives. They might have an elderly neighbour, or somebody who's mobility challenged or has communication issues, like they might be deaf, they might be blind. There's a lot of people who live independently that have challenges, whatever that might be. So it always pays to be on the lookout for that sort of stuff. Now, if you have somebody who's vulnerable and they need to have a power supply, particularly for medical stuff, medical equipment, to help them breathe, to help them live, that sort of thing, there's such a thing as the Priority Services Register. If you go to the Ofgem website, it will tell you what you need to do and which company websites there are. Go onto your gas supplier, go onto your electricity supplier, enroll yourself so that they know that you are dependent and reliant, and so you will get priority service. Really, really important thing to do. If you haven't done it, make sure you do. If you know somebody who needs that, make sure that they're on it. I think probably most people who need it are on it, but it's amazing how many people don't know about some things that they're entitled to, and that they should have access to. The other thing with people with mobility is making sure that their stocks and their supplies are easy for them to use, open. Things like ring pull cans can be easier for some people to open than trying to use a can opener. Like people with arthritis in their hands and stuff, you can get battery can openers and stuff like that. Things like water pumps and dispensers, or just like push pumps, hand pumps that you can use for toiletries and stuff like that. I noticed that during the pandemic, going to buy just ordinary hand wash from Lidl, it used to be a pump dispenser, and then they changed it to sort of like a pop top. So you pop it up.
Yeah, I saw that.
And squeeze it out.
Yeah.
Instead of being able to just push the pump down. that to me, in terms of hygiene and washing your hands and transference of germs and stuff, seemed to be completely wrong. The opposite of what you should be doing.
I know.
Pick the bottle up, pop the top, pick the bottle up, squeeze it out. So yeah, hand pumps, wipes and stuff like that. Making sure that they've got all these specialist items if they need it. But particularly communication and assistance, you know, like have a plan. You probably do have one if you've got someone in that situation that you're looking after or supporting, but try and figure out how you're going to communicate with that person if there's no mobile phone. Have you got a neighbour or somebody who lives close by that can check up on them?
Weren't you saying there was walkie-talkies as well? And I know that might sound funny or extreme to some people, but you know, we may come to a time we do need them.
Well, I mean, like I said at the beginning, everyone's got their own unique situation. And the purpose of this is to make people think about what they need to do if there's an emergency. You've got someone who's reliant on them, who is, you know, like deaf people, for instance, or hearing impaired people can often be very reliant on text messaging. They'll have a mobile phone, they can text message because they can see fine. They just can't hear to talk to you. So, you know, like they'd be reliant on that. If there's no battery and there's no internet, what do they do?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Walkie-talkie might not be, you know, great. That person could be living on their own.
Yeah, and I think we really, you know, we're going to really need to come together.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing too. It's like if you've got capacity to buy more food or more of a couple of different items and stock them away, or you find that you don't need them, then you can give them to somebody else who does.
Yeah, because I was talking to one of my neighbours here, and he's become kind of a friend, and I keep telling him, you know, you need to get some food, you need to get some emergency food, and he's like, oh, I don't need that. So then I was thinking today, well, you know, he's going to be coming to me, you know, so I'm going to need to get some extra stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's it. So it's like, it doesn't, you know, like if you get to a point where somebody doesn't have something like coffee, for instance, it's not going to matter if they're in a situation where they haven't had it or they, you know, really appreciate having it. If you give them a jar of 70p coffee, it's going to do the job and they're going to appreciate it. It's going to be a hot drink that they can drink and enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, and it's little things like that. A block of chocolate that's 30p. Is anyone actually going to care whether it's a Lindt chocolate bar or not?
No. No, I mean, people aren't going to care. You know, it's just survival, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I don't want to panic people with the idea of survival. The thing is, you can survive in style. One of my favourite guys on Facebook is That's What I Reckon. He's an Australian comedian who started doing cooking in his kitchen, and he does swear a lot. But yeah, he's really good and he's really funny. And it's like, yeah, you're just going to have to come together. No one's going to care. Just go for it. Get in there kind of thing. So yeah, and also with one person households, the thing of social isolation and mental health, you know, the inability to call for help, check out what risk factors they are. And it doesn't matter how old people are, if they're living by themselves in a lockdown situation and an emergency happens, like,
yeah, we need to check on our neighbours, you know.
We already know how mental health has been badly affected by lockdowns so far.
So do you have another screen? Is there another?
No, we've kind of talked about supporting each other and stuff like that, banding together. You know, like if you can come together with people to buy bulk supplies and get discounts, then do it. By all means. Swap and barter items. No, the next one is just like resources. So that is basically just the deals that I got, where I got them from, and a few little bits and pieces like that. That's it.
Okay, because it would be really nice to talk about some of this stuff. I mean, I just wanted you to give you the floor, really, to read all of that without me engaging too much, because I thought we could keep that till for now, you know.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'm finished with that. Are you happy for me to stop sharing this screen? Yeah.
Yeah, if you're happy.
There
That's
we
great.
go.
Thank you so much for all that information, and taking the time out to do it, because I know everyone's got busy schedules at the moment. So, okay, so for everyone who would like the PDF of all that information, will be on my website over the next couple of days. So keep checking back, and that is the Pleiadianchild.com. I will also put all the other links as well in the description on YouTube, which is Carol Noonan. Also, the other thing I wanted to mention is I found a website by accident, and I don't believe I don't believe in accidents or anything like that. So I found a website last week, I think it was, a foraging website, and it's an international website. I forget what it's called, so I will find it and put the links on the description in YouTube as well for this video. But it's a foraging website, and it's international, it's worldwide, but it lets you zoom into your area, and it shows you where things are growing. And near me, I have a lot of stuff growing actually that I didn't know. So that might be a good website for you to have a look at, which I will put the links on the link in the description box. So when you see this video, this interview on YouTube over the next couple of days, I will put the foraging website in the description box. But we do need to get growing our own food as well. What else? Okay, so I had a dream, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and I've been having real dreams my whole life, where there was a tsunami coming in over Wales. Now, I'm still quite open-minded about that, or on the fence about it, shall I say, but I do think whatever happens, it's going to be a natural disaster. I don't think, with the food shortages, I think whatever happens, it's going to be a natural disaster. I don't really feel it's just man-made to do with the lockdown and Brexit and things like that. So what's your thoughts on that, Maria?
Well, I mean, as we have talked about earlier, Brexit is one of the factors for things like food shortages, because the UK doesn't produce enough of its own food. And because we've been part of the EU for so long, we're used to importing a lot of foods, not as much as some countries, but quite a lot of fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, particularly the more exotic Mediterranean styles, like tomatoes, for instance. But yeah, I have heard other people say very similar things to what you're saying now, Soma, where there's going to be natural disasters. I've kind of been seeing things like storms happening and the West Country getting a real battering kind of stuff. So yeah, go bags and making sure that you've got enough supplies and making sure that your house is actually wind and waterproof. I've really been seeing more storms than anything else, not tsunamis, but other people have said to me they've seen tsunamis coming. They haven't said where exactly in the UK, but they've said they've seen tsunamis coming, and they've said that they've seen London on fire.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me.
I don't think anything would surprise anybody at this stage, really, would it?
I know.
Bring on the aliens, come on, where are you?
I know. And I was saying to someone the other day, I don't think anyone would really be surprised if dinosaurs started walking down the road. I mean, it's 2020.
Yeah, it might be quite good, actually, especially with some of the MPs. A few T-Rexes let loose around London. It could be, I don't know, maybe Godzilla's going to come and save us all. I quite like Godzilla. It's one of my favourites. Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking about today as well, sanitary products or Tampax, if you're a female. I started stocking up on them a couple of months ago, because when I was told about the emergency food shortages, I started stocking up on them, and you can get them in Asda, for Asda's own brand, for like 80p or something, so they're quite cheap.
Yeah, I think in Lidl they're even cheaper. They're like about 60p or something.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, that's just common sense with stocking up on toiletries, really.
Mm. Yeah.
And also there's that whole thing of even if you were going to be donating to a homeless charity, because where I live, they quite often do a homeless charity before Christmas, and they put together backpacks for homeless people, and they do things like, you know, toiletries, so toothbrushes, toothpaste, soap, shower gel, deodorant, sanitary towels, tampons, that type of stuff, and underwear for people. So, you know, like, that would just be normal, I'd say. But yeah, definitely all your toiletries. I mean, not just toilet paper. We don't really need another toilet paper war. I think we're going to get one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, common sense, because you might not need it, but maybe somebody else will.
Yeah, a neighbour or someone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you as well, you were saying that the water should be, is it pH level 6?
No, it's got to be at least pH level 7.
7.
Yeah. And most supermarket 17p bottles of water will be 7.6 or 7.8. So
Okay.
I've bought 17p bottles of water from Asda, Lidl, Tesco, and I checked online. Sainsbury do them as well, and the pH levels are good. It's about the water's softness and the mineral content.
Is there anything else you want to say, Maria?
I don't think so, unless you've got a question for me. We've gone through the presentation. It's going to be available. I think I've gone through things pretty much as thoroughly as I can. And like I said, and like you've said as well, it's really just about making people aware that they can be prepared. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but there are certain things that they need to think through.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it really is, you know, the Pleiadians have always said to me since I first started channeling them in 2009, 2010 in Ireland, they've always said to me, you know, it's not about putting fear into people. It's simply about sharing the information so that people can prepare, and they used it with other situations, but especially with this emergency food, because a lot of people, you know, they may be skeptical, or they may have fear, or they may have doubt, or they may not feel that they have the money or even the storage space. But you know, I used to go out with a Marine, and he always used to say, prior preparation prevents a piss poor performance. So he did.
Marine.
Yeah. So I think, you know, if there are no, if I'm wrong, then I mean, that would be great. You know, I'd you know, that would be great.
Yeah, dearly, we dearly love to be wrong, wouldn't we? About this?
Yeah,
we would dearly
absolutely
love to be wrong.
Yeah, I would really love to be wrong. You absolutely, yeah. But I don't think I am. You know, and for many years I've heard from other psychics and mediums and healers and spiritual people that I think I first heard it a long time ago, at least 10 years ago, to stock up on food. And I was like, well, why would I want to do that? But now, you know, with getting the information directly, I feel that now is the time. And I know that there's a lot of psychics all around the world, and mediums and other spiritual people and channelers that are saying the same thing. So please, guys, you know, if you're watching this and you're listening, go. It's not about fear. It's just about getting the information out there, simply so that you can go and prepare to look after yourselves. We're not selling anything here.
No, but well, I think we are. I think we're selling confidence. and being prepared, to be honest. One of the things I would say when you're talking about other healers and clairvoyants and spiritual people, having the same kind of message and telling people to stock up, and you being given that message 10 years ago to stock up. I remember going and doing a workshop in France.
Sorry, Maria, I have to intercede there. Sorry, I was given the message recently, but
but you had heard it from somewhere else. Yeah, that's what I meant. So I was at a workshop in the south of France for Ramtha. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ramtha's School of Enlightenment. Well, Jay-Z Knight is an American lady, and she's been channeling an entity called Ramtha for quite some time. They do all sorts of, So Ramtha was saying very clearly, probably about 10, 15 years ago, well, definitely 10, like to go out to buy land, become communities, to grow your own food, to have your own water, make sure you have fresh water, you know, come together. And he was saying that it's the last waltz of the tyrants. And he was also saying, he who has a bicycle shall be rich.
I think those times are coming. And what's his name, Maria?
Ramtha.
R-A-N?
R-A-M. Ram, like a sheep. Ram. Tha, T-H-A.
Just Ramtha, is it?
Yeah. So that's the entity that she channels. She's been channeling him for...
J.C. Knight?
Jay-Z Knight, yeah.
J-Z?
Yeah.
Knight. And is that Knight with a K-N-I-G-H-T?
Yeah, like a knight shining armor.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I've heard of J.C. Knight. I must look that up. I think I'm already friends on Facebook. But yeah, that's so true. I think those times are really, I mean, it's great that she was given that 10 years ago, because I think those times are now, you know, that's really what we need to do now. So let's wrap this up. I'd really love to have you to do more interviews with you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be really great. I love your energy, and a huge thank you so much for doing this interview. And I couldn't have done it without you. Is there any final things you'd like to share?
No, I think, you know, pretty much it's that time of everybody's life that we're living through right now, where, as the great Bill and Ted have said, be excellent to each other.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Maria. That's a great note to end on. And I shall no doubt look forward to more interviews with you. Maybe we could do some with, I know I've got quite a few in the pipeline with other people. So maybe you could join us as well. Yeah,
sure. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. All my love.
Great stuff.
All my love
to you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, darling. Okay.
Awesome.
Bye for now.